Good morning, San Diego. This is the Voice of San Diego podcast, special post-election podcast. I'm Scott Lewis. I'm here with my friend Andrew Keatts.
What's up, buddy?
How are you?
I'm okay.
Sara, Libby.
What's up?
All right, so it's late night. We are watching the returns finally come in. There's a lot, and we have some conclusions, and some things are up in the air. Lots of things in the air. But we have some things we can talk about and go over. Obviously, I think there's some standout both surprises, but also just significant outcomes. And I think they're different, right? Surprises are, or things that are intriguing, are not necessarily the same thing as things that will change our lives. And there's some things that will change our lives. And I think the top of that list is that Summer Stephan has very clearly won election to become district attorney for the next 4 years. So she was an appointed district attorney, ran as an incumbent essentially, but hadn't been elected, and now she has been elected. Well, you talked to her. I talked to her a little bit. What was your takeaway?
Well, I think it is interesting to see somebody at the beginning of a campaign and then at the end of the campaign. She certainly was a different candidate by the end. The person who came into the studio about a year ago and told us that after she has to ask people for money, she goes outside and throws up sometimes, or wants to. I can't quite remember. Was not the person who she was.
She said she did. Yeah,
she said she did. Right. So that she's not that person anymore.
Yeah, she transformed into this fiery, high energy, intense person. And it's specifically about this threat she perceived, right?
Yeah,
it was like that finally triggered. Like, she had a lot of thoughts about all kinds of different issues in law enforcement and stuff, but then she turned into a feisty, just intense candidate.
Yeah, I think that's right. And she just didn't shy away at the end by saying that her opponent, Genevieve Jones-Wright, was a threat to the city. Like that was her campaign slogan, but she was not in any way unafraid to go there. Mm-hmm. She said something to me that things changed for her in the campaign when she stopped focusing so much on her candidacy and what this meant for Summer Stephan's attempt to become elected DA, and think of it instead about the office and the community and the constituency, and that was a turning point for her. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little surprised at the margin of, she seems like she's going to pull away by quite a bit.
Yeah, she's at 173,000 votes, and Jones-Wright's at 97,000, 63 or 64% to 36%.
Yeah.
But it's, on top of her as a candidate, just such like a powerful testament to what being an incumbent DA means. And she was kind of an incumbent DA light in that she'd never actually won election before, and it still seems like it was a tremendous advantage.
Well, and also just the physics of the race. Like you said, she started off shaky a little bit, but she started getting into it. But really, this is San Diego. It's not the most liberal county. This is a county-wide race. So it's not just the city of San Diego. We're talking about Santee and North County and all kinds of places that vote on this. And then add to it, it's a midterm, and it's a primary midterm. So it's perhaps the most conservative electorate possible, except for in a special election. And so that was all mounted against her. And then, I don't know, Jones-Wright, she did a lot to inspire a lot of young people, and a lot of people concerned about criminal justice issues. In our Voice of the Voters feature on Tuesday, there was a lot of people in southeastern San Diego who were obviously identifying with her campaign. But did she reach out? Was there more? What was the effort to reach out to more people in the county?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we, like, as we talked about I guess just 2 days ago at this point, was that she ran her campaign. She didn't tailor her message to what she thought was the most palatable message to the electorate. She ran unapologetically on a criminal justice reform minded platform. Mm-hmm. That's it. There was no softening the edges to appeal to, San Diego County. You gotta win votes in Vista and Hemet too.
Yeah, there was no hard on crime message. There was no hint of it.
No hint of it. Right. Exactly. So that's interesting. But to where we started this segment about Summer being the DA, and the gravity of that. If history is any lesson, she will be the DA for probably quite some time.
Maybe 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, or to Sarah's point, Sarah said, she wasn't even really an incumbent, and the incumbency effect was so large. Well, now she will really be an incumbent. Yeah. People will have voted for her before, unless something goes wrong. It's the type of seat that once you're in, you're usually in until you don't want to be there anymore.
Well, not only that, the DA and the sheriff in the past have really run law enforcement in the community. We used to call them, they hated this, the Dumanis and Sheriff Collender. And, it's true. They were always together. They were always deciding who got to be judges. They were picking who got to run for sheriff. They were it was, a powerful partnership. I think the one thing to watch now, she is now going to have this mandate, and I think there's going to be some changes at the DA's office. It may not be something, that are huge headlines, but there will be some rearrangements, and it'll be interesting to watch how that goes.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Now this probably falls into more of the category of surprise, which is this D4, District 4 Board of Supervisors, County Board. Of course, there's 5 supervisors. 2 of them are up the 2 of these seats are up for election. There is no incumbent in either. And Bonnie Dumanis, we all assumed, would move on in this District 4, which covers most of the city of San Diego, that she would move on to the runoff. And it appears she has, but only with 28.89% as of about 11:30 p.m., 28.89% of the vote. Nathan Fletcher has come in second or first over the night at 28.63. If he continues to gain ground, he's going to come in first. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, this was, you say surprising. It's almost surprising because it was, in the end, kind of sort of anticlimactic. Like, we saw the results and it was like, well, that's probably not something anybody can close. That the gap between Fletcher and Saldana, with Passons behind them a little bit, was not realistically something that you could see closing over the course of the night. So where we were kind of girded for really close as will it be Fletcher, will it be Saldana sort of night, was instead pretty quickly from the first set of returns clear that it was going to be Bonnie and Nathan in the runoff.
The only mystery seems to be which one of them will have won.
Well, yeah, and if like
that's
conventional,
not really doesn't even matter if they both move on. Yeah,
and if conventional wisdom holds, I suspect by the time people are listening to this in the morning, Nathan will be in first place, most likely.
Which is fascinating. I don't think anybody's thought Bonnie Dumanis would be in second place. If she ends up in the 20s with a percent, where does she get 22 other percent to win? I mean, this is a very heavy Democratic district. And I think it raises a question, are they going to they've already seen what Nathan Fletcher is willing to put in as far as resources and effort into this race, and what the labor unions are willing to put into this race, and what Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez is willing to put into the race. Yeah. There's a lot of people willing to go. So they're basically said, are you going to step to this? Like, they spent, the Lincoln Club and the Lincoln Club itself spent about $400,000 over the last campaign. Just 2 weeks, they spent $290,000 to crush him. On the other side, on the labor side, they're Mickey Kasparian and the United Food and Commercial Workers spent, from what I could tell, $136,000. Apparently, there's more out there, and with the express purpose of ending this man's political career, and it doesn't look like it came close. I mean, 5-6% is not that big of a gap, but I think a lot of us thought it would be a lot closer, if not Lori Saldana in this position.
Yeah, I mean, so back to where you started. over 71% of the votes in this election were for Democrats. And the electorate would presumably be more Democratic skewing in the fall.
Yeah.
So that is a tough road to hoe for Bonnie. And I think conservatives in this county have not often thrown good money after bad. I'm reminded of like Measure K and L, where they vehemently opposed putting those measures on the ballot in 2016. They pulled some money together to run an anti-campaign. They saw some polling, and then they just never spent $1 of it.
Yeah.
They just let it go. Like, well, spending money just to have a battle cry doesn't make a great deal of sense. And so, yeah, I don't know how much money they'll spend on this race, but yeah, where did these votes come from? I don't know. The other thing, I was making fun of myself about this earlier today, was after the 2012 and 2013 Nathan Fletcher defeats, where he was first an independent and then a Democrat who was not supported by the Democratic Party, when he got savaged on the left and the right and then had very depressing electoral showings, I told myself, okay, use your head. Organizational factors matter in local races. People do not know very much about these races. These are low information contests. The apparatus of a party, the ground campaign of a labor union matters significantly. Stop chasing squirrels. Stop getting distracted by the bright lights of mailers and campaign narratives, and just focus on those fundamentals. And then I completely forgot about it for this race and was just totally got
you and everybody else
enthralled in the narrative. And here, look, like the guy who was endorsed by the largest labor unions and the Democratic Party beat a field of labor, Democrats.
Yeah.
It when you think of it that way, it should be not at all surprising.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to watch and see how that race develops. And again, they basically have shown what they're willing to do. And will the Republicans match it? How important is that race to them? And that'll decide how fierce it gets. So the other major race, of course, that we were watching was the congressional race, District 49.
Yep.
Covers most of the north part of the coastal part of San Diego County and a part of Orange County. So what did we see there?
I was kind of bracing myself for a night where we knew nothing at the end of the night. And for the most part, that didn't happen, except maybe in this race, where it seems like the race is still on, at least from where we sit right now at 11:40, for that second spot between Mike Levin and Sara Jacobs, with Diane Harkey, the Republican, who had the backing of the state party, getting a sizable lead,
she's
around
at about
25%.
Yeah, about 25%, and then Mike Levin and Sara Jacobs right below, or not right below, but right neck and neck. And Applegate, Doug Applegate, still has a chance. This will be one of those nail biters over the next couple of weeks, or a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, as they try to hash that out on both the county's registrars.
I think you kind of, sort of have something similar at play here with the Democrats and the Republicans, is that where does Harkey get the rest of her votes from? The other Republicans didn't do very well. Diane Harkey got 24.7, a decided victor, clearly number one. But Kristen Gaspard did not do very well at 9%. Rocky Chavez did not do very well at 8%. And, the second, third, and fourth were all Democrats that just did better. So, it's not anywhere close to the decided advantage that you see in the supervisor's race, but it does seem to be a little bit true that there's some blue mojo happening in the 49th district.
Well, it's still Orange County,
it
and
is.
There's now a Republican for governor at the top of the ticket, which could help drive turnout in...
Potentially a Republican in Senate, too.
Yeah. So, well, I think Kevin DeLeon has made it through.
Has he?
Yeah.
We
I
sure
think
about
so,
that?
yeah.
They called that, yeah.
They called it.
But yeah, I mean, I think given the governor's race, a lot of these sanctuary state, gas tax issues will be very much in the mix, and that could have some real impact in a race like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, on the one hand, Paul Kerr, who spent millions of dollars attacking Mike Levin and Sarah Jacobs, that didn't work.
Yeah, I think almost like the bottom of the ticket of this race is as interesting as the top, where you have Paul Kerr spent $1 bajillion. You had Kristen Gaspar go hard on the sanctuary state issue. It didn't seem like it paid off well. You had Rocky Chavez, who's been elected by voters in that district, not perform very well, and just kind of and there's a San Juan Capistrano city councilman who did almost as well as as Chavez and Kerr without spending any money that I know of.
Yeah, it gets weird when you get down to those low levels where it's like...
There was one guy that I was curious about. So he's by far the funniest guy in this race. He comes on the stage, everybody's howling. He's the peace and freedom guy. All, social. I mean, he has the freedom of having these very clear like socialist principles or whatever. He was hilarious. He got 79 votes. 79. Dead last.
Yeah.
Peace and freedom.
Well, so we can... The 49th, a lot of the... so one thing is to say, national journalists, parachuted into California over the last couple weeks and spent a lot of time talking about the possibility of Democrats getting shut out of these pickup opportunities in 49, 48, 39, and 10. As we sit here right now, they're not in a position to get shut out in any of those. Some of them are still close enough that they bear watching, but that seems to be a fear that was not realized. The one thing I will say, go ahead. Sorry.
And not only was it not realized, but it never really has been. And I know the jungle primary is not all that old, but it seems like a real fascination in DC about this possibility happening. And
it's
so
new.
far,
it's different. They're crazy
really
in
hasn't panned out.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this will put that to bed a little bit, but
I thought I was one of those that kept pushing it too. I mean, the first moment when Darrell Issa retired or announced his retirement, I was one of the first like, hey, this is not necessarily good news. This could end up, with two Republicans, but it's just with these chaos with so many people, I didn't know how to pull it out. So there is new numbers. Dems currently are polling 50.6% of the primary votes in the California 49th district. So it's pretty good showing, and it's a sign if you're a Democrat, it's a good sign because this is again a more conservative electorate in the fall,
right? With
a lot more at stake, it could be much higher. So
yeah, and I would add a tailwind that they'll have going for them that I don't think they counted on at all. Moving into our surprises section here is the 76th Assembly District.
Right. So this one did end up with two.
Yeah. So this overlaps with the 49th, and it's the seat that Rocky Chavez is vacating.
Yeah.
And it did end up with two Democrats. And it looks like the main Republican in the race, Phil Graham, came in third, at least where we stand right now. So that's,
And by like he's back by like 5 points. So
a seat that they're potentially losing, and those Republican seats are kind of few and far between in the state legislature.
Yeah, and so just as having at least a Republican at the top of the ticket for governor was important for Republicans to drive turnout, I think it is less powerful when it works the other way. But I do think it's relevant that there will not be a Republican campaign knocking on doors for the assembly district that overlaps in large part with the 49th district.
Yeah.
So I do think that hurts their odds there as well.
Yeah. All right. And the other surprise you wanted to point to was in the city council race, District 4.
Did not see this coming. Now Sara made a good point. We were getting ready for the show off mic, as they say in the podcasting business.
Well, let's set the stage. So this is Myrtle Cole. She's the council president in the city of San Diego. She is up for re-election. This is District 4, southeastern San Diego. And she was facing basically two candidates, one of her former employees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Monica Montgomery. And so, look, Myrtle Cole didn't really campaign much for this seat. It's a primary seat, couldn't be decided. She was really a shoo-in to move on to November.
Well, there was I noticed some spending on the Democrats. The Democratic Party was spending on her behalf in the last 2 weeks. And I just thought that just surprised me, but I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's just a normal thing they do or whatever.
Maybe they saw this coming.
Maybe, yeah. Assemblyman Todd Gloria was in town doing last weekend of get out the vote for her this weekend. So, but Monica Montgomery, as we sit here right now, is within 400 votes. It's a 4% gap between them. And I think maybe more significantly, Myrtle only got 40.48% of the vote. Which means that's a pretty considerable amount of discontent in a district that where you're running for re-election, where you're the council president. It's a safe Dem seat. That's a lot of people voting for someone other than you, basically.
Yeah, and so obviously the labor unions and others can rally. It's definitely an uphill battle for a challenger like that, but it's not an insignificant showing. Yeah.
And so Sara compared it, I think, in 2016 to Lachey Collins versus
Sharon Whitehurst
Payne for the
school board race, and that was another instance where it's the same district. There's a lot of overlap there, and in the primary, Lachey Collins
she won, right?
Had more votes, yeah, and then all this. Well, it went to a citywide vote, which was a big difference. But I think Sharon Whitehurst Payne had, a lot of backing from labor and had a lot of money and resources going in to the general, which is similar to what we could see here.
Yeah, and it wasn't at all close in the end.
Yeah.
All right, so the next one we wanted to highlight was in South Bay. So there are two races in National City. Let's see if I can do this. One of them is for term limits that would just extend the existing 3 term limits that are on the city council to the mayor. Or vice versa?
No, the 3 term limits that are applied to the mayor would be extended to the city council.
Right. And then
one could serve more than 6 lifetime terms.
And that basically would mean the current mayor is out. He's done. He's termed out. He's served his 3 terms. But he and others have engineered a new proposal that would do just 2 terms for the mayor and for the city council. And that is the one that he supports. And if that passes, he gets to run again for those 2 terms. And so what's the latest on that?
So when we were prepping for this show, it was we had assumed that Measure B, the more simple one, 2 4-year terms for everyone, looked like it was well ahead. They have now narrowed to a point that I don't think anyone could be confident saying which one has prevailed. They're separated, in fact, by 70 votes. So both of them are over 50%, and this is a case where only one can win. So whichever gets more votes will win. As I said, they're separated by 70 votes. So your guess is as good as mine. I thought an hour ago that this meant that Ron Morrison would be able to run for re-election and would be able to serve 2 more terms that he, first reached the city council in 1992. But now I guess it's back up in there, and I have no idea.
All right. And then the last measure we wanted to talk about, Measure A, the city of Chula Vista, sales tax increase of 1/2 cent. This is into perpetuity. This is not one of those that times out. So right now, as we're talking in the late evening, of course, it's winning at 55% to 45%, 9,450 votes to 7,788. So looks solid. Looks like it'll prevail. However, it's subject again to the soda tax. So basically
your soda tax measure traveled well. I was in Golden Hall tonight, and I said, oh, it looks like Chula Vista won. And somebody was like, yeah, but that's the one that the soda tax might take it off.
Yeah,
oh, man.
Soda companies.
Don't tell him that.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Red Bull, they're all funding a ballot measure for the November ballot that would potentially require all tax increases to get a 2/3 vote. This is only at 55 right now. So and here's the thing, it would be in November's ballot, but it would be retroactive for the whole year. So it would throw out this tax increase. So it's winning, but there's that to keep in mind. All right. Lastly, let's go over a couple of city council races. The big unknown was the District 8, the turnout or the how they would rank.
Open seat to replace David Alvarez. So his staffer, Vivian Moreno, is in a very comfortable lead, about 8% lead over second place. That is Antonio Martinez, San Isidro school board member, setting up potentially, who knows, maybe they'll play nice, but potentially a proxy fight over the ongoing dispute in South Bay politics, reminiscent of David Alvarez when he was first elected against Felipe Hueso.
Right. So there's always
that's based on the coalitions of support behind both Vivian and Antonio.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what unions line up with what, whether some of the more conservative alliances also back at either of those candidates in town. It's kind of, D8, D9, a few of those others are a D4, those seats, District 4, District 8, District 9, they're kind of the battles of the future. If San Diego continues to get more Democratic, then that means that it'll break down in these sort of more labor Dems versus more free market or conservative Democrats. So it'll be interesting to see how that breaks down. All right, and D2, yes. So this was the other one we were unsure of the outcome. So Dr. Jen Campbell, she prevailed as far as making the runoff. Lori Zaff, of course, the incumbent, did quite well, but there will be a runoff, and she's the one that gets to do it. So I think one of the big questions we have is how much will the Dems put into that? Will they go to the mat to try to win that seat, or maybe some how much can she rally? How much can she inspire? And how much discontent is there for Lori Zaff?
And it's the same question in D6, right? About whether Tommy Howe will get a lot of institutional support from the Dems, because Chris Kate had a really good showing tonight.
Almost 60% of the vote. So this is the first direct impact of somebody being affected by that Measure K. So Measure K said that...
Interestingly enough, a measure that Chris Kate hated.
Chris Kate hated it.
Joined PolitiFest to debate the merits of.
Yeah, in 2016, he would have won.
That's actually pretty funny.
I'm sure he finds
that pretty
hilarious.
I'm sure
that's pretty good.
I actually saw him and gave him a little shit about that. So he was...
I hadn't thought about that. That's fun.
So yeah.
That's good stuff.
He would have won in any other election. This is the first election, though, where these races have to get punted to November no matter what. He will face Tommy Howe, the radio veteran and active Democrat, and that'll be an interesting race, I guess. But again, the question is, how many resources? Because the Lincoln Club and the other conservative alliances, the Chamber, they're ready to go to war on this one. So we talked about how Nathan Fletcher has his sort of armament ready. Well, the Lincoln Club and the Chamber are ready to go to battle for this one.
Yeah, Chris is their guy. They're not going to let him wither there. I do think back to D2. There's nothing scientific about the over-unders we set in our election contest, and in fact, most of them performed
wildly off,
absolutely abominably. So I hope you didn't spend too much time thinking about them. But one, we set Lori Zaff's over under at 46.5.
Oh, pretty close.
She is at 45.8. So not only is it close, but she is under. So
most people I think everybody that turned it in picked her going under. So
really?
If
okay, so never mind. That's
no, but see if she gets over, then it'll prove it was good.
Well, I don't think she's gonna.
She might. I don't know. Maybe she'll gain. I don't know.
I'm still counting on conventional wisdom of the Dems growing and not Republicans growing.
I hope.
But yeah, that's that race. Brian Peace did not do especially well. Although I take that back. He's within striking distance of Jen Campbell. That was a close race.
Yeah. So that was the most organized that he's been and the most support that he's had for one of these races. He's run several times in other races, and so it'd be interesting to see if he gives it another shot. All right, so
I want to say one thing we don't have up there that I would like to mention quickly is the D5 county supervisors race. As it sits right now, it appears that a Democrat will get in there. It seemed possible, maybe even likely to some extent, that Oceanside Mayor Jerry Kern would come in as the second place to to San Marcos Mayor Jim Desmond. That is not the case. Democrat Michelle Gomez seems likely to advance as the second place vote getter there, setting up another Dem versus Republicans race that gives them, I think SEIU will go in on that. And again, another district that overlaps with 49, and we'll have Democrats out knocking on doors to.
You think they'll go in big for her?
I think SEIU went in big for a Republican.
Well, yeah, but that's traditionally a Republican seat, so it would be more likely. It seems like it'd be a tough one for a Democrat.
So you think the opposite?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just seems like Jim Desmond
fits
had
that district
such a
there.
good showing in this that it would be hard, even with like a better, more favorable Dem turnout in the fall, to overcome that much of a gap. But
yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, 65% of the votes went to Republicans. So it's, the redistricting commission, I don't think ever envisioned that race, that seat going to Democrats. But
yeah. Well, thank you for joining us this election Boxing Day. As we deal with the aftermath of our regular holiday that we call Election Day. So stay with us. We've got analysis all week on all of these topics, and we'll have a roundtable for this week's discussion on the regular podcast. So thanks to everybody here, Andrew and Sarah. I'm glad that you're working hard.
Still here.
And to Adam Greenfield, thank you for supporting us and getting this podcast out. And to all of our friends and partners, thanks.